I'm so glad you're here for another episode where faith, hope, and real life challenges intersect. Whether you're joining me again or tuning in for the first time, I pray that this time together encourages your heart and strengthens your journey. Let's dive in. Last episode, I talked about how everything kind of came into being diagnosed for the second time with endometrial cancer. And there were so many things that I feel were kind of left out, but essentially just the whole planning of things, right? So within that time, yes, we knew that I was going to have surgery, but we were really concerned for the spread of how much cancer there was or how much it had grown in my body. And there was concern that there was cancer in the lining of my stomach, possibly other places in my stomach, and there was also concern that there was possible cancer in my lungs, which was very concerning. I was technically classified as stage 4, and you hear of these stories of how, when things get bad for cancer patients, it's because the cancer has spread through their body. And when you think about it, the cancer has started in my uterus, my cervix, and it is now getting to my lungs. And all I could really think about in that time was, guys, I'm going to die. It just didn't sound really well, despite the fact of wanting to have this belief that I would be okay. It was very daunting to think that this could now be in my lungs. And it was a hard thing to process mentally, but so many other things were going on. It was, kind of back to back of this appointment coming here, being examined, all of these things. And then in the midst of that, I'm just in, again, agonizing, excruciating pain where the days just, they blurred together. And I couldn't really think anymore. So I still to this day really could not tell you my exact date of my surgery. I know it was in the latter part of October. I think it was like the last week of October, and I would have to check records to check, but I knew that I was going to have to be there. Of course, 5:30 in the morning we go, or we're planned to go. But before these things happened, I've explained to you guys how I grew up Catholic, and my Momo was my best friend. She was my rock. She was the most, as a grandma would be, right? She was just the most amazing woman, and I actually had lost her at this time. I think it had been maybe 2 years prior. She passed away in January of 2020, and not only was this a hard thing to process without her, but it was just, I wanted some piece of her with me. She was, of course, very devout Catholic. What I learned about her in her passing, and again, how I did not know this, especially because I was so close with her, she was a part of a group of women within our church or her church where she would go and pray over the sick people. And my aunt Diana, of course, being the only daughter in my family or of my grandmother's children, I had reached out to her and just kind of, wanting a piece of my grandmother. I really didn't, when she passed away, I felt like I had so many memories of her that I didn't necessarily need anything of hers until this time. And I really, really wanted a rosary of hers. She was very devout again, and the rosaries were just something she always had with her. She always prayed the rosary, and I wanted something of hers to have with me when I went into surgery. What I ended up getting was something much more than I could ever have expected. It was a rosary that she made herself. She picked out the little crystals. She made it again with her hands, and she would use it to go pray over the sick people. And it was so much more special to me simply because not only was it hers, but she made it for herself And that is something her and I had in common. We're such crafty people. I love to make crafts, and I kind of feel, not kind of, I feel that I got this from her. She was one of those people that just, whatever she wanted to do, she didn't allow it to stop her. She was going to do it. And again, it was just such a sentimental thing to have something of hers that she made, that she used, and that she would pray with. And I took this with me the morning of my surgery. And that's one thing that's been a troubling part for me, is that I sometimes have sat in my mind of, would my grandmother, and again, not that she would be upset with me, but she raised me to be a Catholic. She raised me to have these beliefs that she had. And I always felt, or I always feel, that I'm kind of going against what she taught me to believe. And again, that's just something in my mind, because I know the love that my grandmother had. She wouldn't care. She just wants me to feel the love of God. But I was still very new to my faith in that time. I really had just kind of fallen back in love with Jesus and the overwhelming feeling of love, from watching the show that we talked about, The Chosen. So I wasn't as mature as I am now within my faith, but I still had the connection, right? And so I remember laying in bed. I was very fearful. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to have like a typical hysterectomy surgery because of the things that we talked about, right? Like we were concerned for how much cancer there was, how big the tumor was. There was just no way that, one, we could do it microscopically, with the fancy tools that they put in your body and they remove your organs. That was not an option. And then we also knew that, again, the typical hysterectomy incision is where you would have like a cesarean. But that was just, unfortunately, not an option for me either. Unfortunately, I joke that I was going to be gutted like a cow, essentially from where the normal cesarean cut is, past my belly button, literally through my belly button, and kind of in the middle, below my bra line, but in the middle, again, of like my stomach. And I just was so, I think that is the part that scared me the most. I knew that clearly there's cancer, there's tumors, but I just could not imagine my body being opened up in that way. I mean, we're not doctors. I'm not a doctor. Whoever's listening, you may be a doctor, but I just, in my mind, I'm like, how are you going to cut me open this way? How my stomach's just going to be all open? Ugh, guys, I couldn't imagine. And not only that, but the after part of how am I going to function? People are cut open every day, but I'm not cut open every day. And so it was just this thought in my mind of, how am I going to do this? And again, I had my Mimo's rosary with me. I was listening to worship music at this time, and it was just an overwhelming feeling of love, holding her rosary in my hand as I lay there. My mom was praying over me. My husband, of course, he's shy, he's quiet, he doesn't know how to process these type of emotions, so he's processing things there with me as well. But I'm a hot mess, guys. I'm scared, I'm nervous, I feel loved. Again, holding her rosary and worshiping and praying to God that He let this be. Whatever it is that He wants, it will be. Whether that is to continue my journey and we can't get all the cancer, that was a fear of ours, that we wouldn't be able to get it all out. Or we get it, we move on, we move through chemo. I just, in that moment, remember praying to my Mimo, like, please, be with these doctors and these nurses and help me to get through this. I really couldn't think of anything at this time other than that it is in God's hands, and what will be He knows. He knows what will be, and I am putting everything in His hands. And it was a very overwhelming feeling. I felt again secure with putting my destiny essentially in God's hands, but there's just this, of course, this unknown, you know. Um, I didn't tell anybody but my husband, but I pretty much wrote, goodbye letters to him and my bonus child. We haven't talked about that, but maybe in the future. Um, but I kind of took this idea that I have no control over this, right? It's in God's hands. But if it is that I don't walk out of this hospital and that this is my last day, I wanted to put it all on the table and tell the people I loved the most just how much I love them. But again, I don't really know how to explain the feelings I felt that day. It was highs and lows and happy and sad, scared, nervous, overwhelming. Um, but it's about that time. The nurses come in. We start my medication. They give me some, I couldn't even tell you what kind of medication. But to help with my nerves, of course, the anesthesiologist comes in and tells me what they're going to do. It tells me these fancy words, and really, I couldn't even comprehend half of what they're telling me. Just like, okay, let's go, doc. Let's get it done. Um, and I take this sleepy medication, and the next thing you know, I'm waking up from the medication. Um, I remember, clearly saying goodbye to my family, kind of. It's kind of woozy, you're kind of in and out, and was that real? Was that not real? Um, there's kind of a funny story to what happened during surgery. My mom is a hot mess. She parks in the wrong place and gets her car towed. But this is literally what I wake up to. I say this story because this is what I wake up to. I'm in the recovery room, kind of waking up, and the nurses are telling me like, oh, good morning, even though it's evening. And yes, guys, it's evening. Mind you, I went in to my surgery at 9 in the morning. Okay, and I'll keep explaining, but I get on the phone with my mother, and she's all over the place with her conversation. She's happy, she's excited, but she's crying because she's not even at the hospital. She's trying to pick up her car from the um, impound because again her car got towed, and I'm just on a high. Like, I'm still drugged up. That sounds horrible, but I was still coming out of my medication. I was very tired. I was incredibly thirsty. I remember my throat being so dry, guys, like begging for water. I felt like I'd been in the desert for hours. Um, but it was kind of funny waking up and my mom's just didn't expect that. Um, but I come out, they take me to my room, and it's now, guys, probably like 9 o'clock at night, and I still can't comprehend. Like, I went into surgery at 10 in the morning. It's nighttime outside. It's 9 o'clock at night. Then my parents can't find me. My husband can't find me. My family who's there with me, nobody can find me, and I'm kind of sitting in my room by myself, and like, what is going on? Um, and then, we're rejoiced. We're so happy to see each other. They finally find me after some time. And the stories kind of come in. I was kind of taken back. I knew, right, that I kind of made it out of surgery, that I was waking up and I was surrounded by my family. But I, of course, was put under and had no idea what happened. And my family goes on to tell me, more of really my husband, that surgery went much longer than expected. There was way more cancer than we expected. My doctor, Dr. M, or my oncologist, she had actually, her plan was to use the microscopic tools. Microscopic, I'm not sure. Could be the wrong terminology, guys. Again, the robotic little things that kind of look in your belly before they cut you open. Because one thing to know is if you cut somebody open and you expose cancer cells to oxygen and you're not ready, it could be very damaging. From my understanding, it could be life or death. Um, Again, I'm not a doctor. This is just kind of what was explained to me. They wanted to see, again, what they were working with before they exposed all of the cancer cells to the oxygen. And the story being told to me is essentially that Dr. M just felt very overwhelmed herself, that she stood over me for about 10 minutes, really feeling defeated. And from what I've kind of told you guys, her demeanor and her really devotion to me was that she was going to do everything that she could to save me, to save my life. And I knew that things were bad, but I don't think I really resonated with how bad they were. Oh, I'm gonna try to save your life. Like, okay, cool. Like, that's the expectation, right? Like, we're kind of cracking jokes, but not realizing that, she was serious. She really had this task at hand to save my life. And when she put the camera in my body, seeing truly how much cancer there was, guys, she really thought that she couldn't do it. She stood over my body for what she says was about 10 minutes, kind of feeling defeated, feeling that there was no way she could save my life, that really it was kind of end of care now for me. She was going to walk away, and I was essentially going to be, I can't really even quite process it. I was just going to be on end of care until the cancer completely took over my body and ended my life. That's really how she expressed it to me. She knew that there was just way too much. It would take too much effort. It ended up being that the cancer had grown so much that it adhered to my appendix. That it was just way too big. There was just no way to take all of the cancer tumor essentially off of the appendix without ruining it. It had spread to the lining of my stomach. The tumor in my cervix had grown exponentially. This is the terminology she said. It had grown exponentially, that it was coming out of my cervix in a way that, TMI, so sorry, but looking at me below, she could actually see the tumor, that she really didn't even have to use a specific kind of tool to look through my cervix, that she could just see the tumor. And to really understand that is mind-blowing to me. I can't quite understand. I mean, clearly that's huge, that's massive, but for her as an oncologist to stand there and think that this surgery was going to take maybe at max 3 hours, there was just no way. And so she stood over me, and she really didn't elaborate too much, but she just kind of, told herself and had a talk with God that there was just, she couldn't do it. And before she made that decision, she was, standing there thinking, I'm going to close her up and this is it. Her boss kind of walked in and was thinking, like, what's going on? Why are we taking so long? Why haven't we gotten started? And I think the kind of feel that she gave me was essentially that she kind of looked at him like, I can't do this. And he was what gave her the courage to do it. Like, you've done way worse. You're an awesome doctor. You're an awesome oncologist, and kind of gave her that pep talk of, you can do this. It's not going to be easy, but I know that you can do this. And what, again, was supposed to be a 3-hour surgery ended up being like a 6.5-hour surgery. We did have to remove my appendix. We had to remove the lining of my stomach. We knew that we were going to remove my ovaries and my uterus, but for some reason we were still contemplating if we were going to remove my cervix. But because, again, of how much cancer there was, the tumor had already adhered into my organ as well, my cervix. So we removed that as well. And unfortunately, during that time, I had lost a lot of blood. I did have to have a blood transfusion right after I got out of surgery. Honestly, they started that immediately once I got to my room. But to know, guys, like, this makes me incredibly emotional because I think about the day and the conversations, the prayers that I had, praying to God that I put this in your hands. Whatever will be, it's you. who decides. It is you who knows my destiny and what I'm meant to do, where I'm meant to be, and if this is my time. I accept that. I truly accept that. But when I think of that day and how my oncologist was feeling so defeated and thinking that there was no way she could save me, and her doctor, her boss, comes in and gives her this talk of, I believe in you. If you don't believe in God's intervention and God's angels and my grandmother being my guardian angel, I hope that this story gives you some sort of belief or feeling of belief, because I know that day that not only did my oncologist have her belief in God and her faith, but I know that God stepped in for me and said that it is not my time. That yes, I have carried a cross of my own, and I am struggling, and I'm essentially suffering, right? I'm in so much pain. But I know that in that time that God was not ready for me to die. It was not my time. It just wasn't my time. And having that kind of validation, I didn't need it. I didn't need to be validated in my thoughts to believe that God is real. But having that, after I prayed and held my grandmother's rosary, I have never felt God's love more than in that moment. I still feel his love every day. But coming out of surgery and knowing what happened, knowing that it was almost a decision made by her that she couldn't do it, and God said no. God said not today. God said you're gonna try. And who knows, things could have gone wrong. And they did. I don't know the full story. I clearly wasn't there. I was knocked out. But knowing that God said, not today, not for her, and that these people stepped in and saved my life, I have just never felt more of God's love and being saved by him. And it was just, I don't know, guys. It gives me goosebumps to think of that day and to think of just the miracle that happened and how God intervened on my behalf. And of course, I have her and her team come, and they're standing all around me, and she is just so humbled. She doesn't realize the amazingness of all of this. And her and I don't really talk about faith. I have told her that God sent her in my path for a reason, that God stepped in and allowed her to save my life, that she's my angel. I've told her many times how she saved my life, and I hope that she believes in a higher power. And if she doesn't, then maybe this situation allowed her to feel that. But it was really just, I can't even express, guys. I feel like I'm stammering on my words, and I'm sorry if I'm stumbling and stuttering. But I hope you feel the true emotion and how much that moment will live with me for the rest of my life. Because that moment showed me how God stepped in and said, not today, my child. It's not going to happen. And I felt that my mama was there with me. In my mind, I have this vision. It's crazy to think about. I'm sorry. I truly do have this vision of me kind of laying on the table. And of course, funny story, but I remember being wheeled into the room so I have this visual of what the room looked like. And I remember during this time, during COVID, me and my husband got so into Grey's Anatomy that we watched probably 18 seasons in I don't know how many months. We were obsessed. And I remember being so drugged up, guys, that I was cracking jokes. If you know me personally, I'm a jokester. And lo and behold, I'm in there literally telling them, like, okay, so who is sleeping with who? Who is the McDreamy and who's McSteamy? And where do you guys hook up? And I remember just having a crack, like literally laughing with them because it was just too funny. I'm sure they've heard that so many times. But again, I digress and I get off the topic, guys. But I have this vision in my mind of this room and where I'm at and all these people are around me and I can see Jesus and my Momo in the corner. Ooh, sorry. I just have this vision that they were there with me. And I don't need to question if it's real. I know that they were there and they stepped in and saved my life. I believe that he's always with us. As long as you talk to him and you reach out to him, you believe in him, that he will do the same for you. He will. But the story continues. Days later, after I've talked to the doctors, talked to the nurses, I've been there probably 3 days now. My mom was, again, she's a devout Catholic, and hospital, there's of course priests there to talk to you, and he comes in and he prays over me, and my mom is just, she's a yapper, so she's talking. And again, I don't think I needed any more validation that Jesus was real or that he was there for me. But my brother, who I'm sure is listening, loves to go against everything that I believed in the moment. That it wasn't God who was saving me. It was science, because these doctors were so knowledgeable of going to school, and it was the machines and the science behind it all. Because there's how many people, if you are a true believer, how many people will sit here and say that the things that have saved us in life, especially when it comes to cancer, is not of God, but it is about science and evolution and all of this stuff, right, are not about faith. And I hadn't even been able to open up to the priest about that, but I think maybe in the element of where we are, right, of being in the hospital and knowing that this is kind of like a controversial type of topic that goes back and forth between believers and non-believers, that it is not God, but more of the evolution of science. But I found it so profound that in this moment of us praying and about how God has intervened in my life and saved me, and even though I've been brought to this place, and even though I have suffered so much through my infertility, through my struggles, through my walking away and turning away from God, being here at this moment, that God has brought all of these people to me, the doctor, Dr. M, the nurses, the gentleman who I still to this day don't know, but her boss who came in and made her believe that she could do it, that is God's work. That God has brought all of these little pieces, these people, into my story to save me. Guys, it was like, I literally in that moment was like, God, I hear you. I hear you. And I don't need any more to believe in you. But it was this constant reminder, this constant push of, listen, my child. That is literally how I felt in that moment. You know, he's giving me this more proof, or these more moments of validation of, I am here for you. Here's a complete stranger, a priest, someone who is of the Catholic faith. Even though I'm being pushed over here to have these different beliefs of my mom, here's another person to make you feel my love and to feel that you are mine and you are my child, and this is how I work. And I could go on and on about The Chosen and how these pieces of the Bible really started to resonate with me, because I, of course, had these questions, right? I had these moments in my mind, or when I turned away from God, where I would say, if God is real, why are there hungry people? If God is real, why do people suffer? Why do I have to suffer? If God is real, why are there murders happening? Why are people having to be hurt in this way? And it is, seriously, guys, The Chosen that made me really understand the Bible in a different way, and having this clear explanation of why these things will happen, right? It is in these moments where you are suffering so much that God is calling to you, saying, there's going to be hurt in the world, but it is me who I want you to turn to. It is me that I want you to lean on in the hardest times of your life, to come and find me, because I am your Father. Guys, I've never felt so much love and acceptance and want. And now we could go on and on about my personal relationship with my father, and I have no shame anymore. I think I've tried to protect him for so long, and give this idea that my dad was the best person. And if you know my dad, he's great. He's funny. He's a jokester. He was around, you know, he raised me. He, in his words, did the best that he could, right? And he was there after my surgery, and I can't take that away from him. But me and my father have this broken relationship where what he's given me in life has just not been enough for me. And in his mind, he's done the best he can. But it has been through this journey. I don't want to bash him. That's not what I'm here for. But I'm here to just paint the picture that I haven't always had the father that I've wanted, the love from a father that I needed. But through this journey, I have learned that God is the only father that I need. It is my faith and my love for God and Jesus that has shown me true love. I feel it's not hard for me to talk about this. It just feels so, I'm almost like, wow, I've become this person, right? But I want you to feel this love that I feel, because I want to show that I have been broken, that I too have been turned away and have needed this love from a parent, from a father, right? But with my cancer, with my struggles, and with my infertility, and with turning my faith, or turning away from my faith, I now have found all of that love that I needed. And I feel like all of my little pieces that have been broken, all of these shattered pieces of me from growing up with a mother who was dealing with the worst abuse in her life, with me feeling unloved and not worthy because of the feelings that I had growing up with a stepmother who belittled me and treated me like total crap, to all of this, right? Having these feelings of I was just not enough, that I was not worthy, that something was wrong with me, that I was not worthy of love. But here I stood after cancer, or after this feeling of cancer's going to take me away, and here, this is what I deserve. I'm not surprised. But through all of this, God has shown me that I am enough, that I am worthy of love, that I've just been searching for it in the absolute wrong places, that I have been seeking validation from a father, from my earthly father, if you will, from the relationships that I've looked for with friends, with boyfriends with my husband, not husbands, guys, just one. In these moments, I really have felt, or I felt at the time, that God was allowing me to pick up these pieces of my broken heart. And through his love, and through his never faulting me, never leaving me, that even though I've turned my back on him many, many times, even though I've walked away, that he has said, I'm still here with you. I'm still here with you, and I love you, and you are enough, and you are worthy, and you are mine. You are mine. Guys, there's so much more in between that day of my surgery and me today. But I can tell you that nothing has given me this type of love and validation than our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I feel like I'm preaching. I literally feel like I'm a preacher right now. Gosh, guys. This is why I feel like I am here today. That God has a purpose for me. That God wants me to share my story. Not because I'm anybody special, guys. I'm just a woman. I feel like this is my purpose. That all of my pain and all of my struggles, all of my sacrifices, the loss of my babies, that if I can share all of this with someone, and there is somebody who's listening to me right now that can feel that their struggles are somewhat like mine, that they can find the love of Jesus. And we don't have to be the same. We don't have to be the same. One of my best friends had these deep conversations where this thought has resonated with me, that he told me that your worst day is not my worst day. But just because our worst days are different, it doesn't change the struggles that you've had or your feelings, right? It's just that we've had a different day, but it was still your worst day. And it was still my worst day. And your struggles are not they're not as bad as mine, right? And when I let that sit with me, and I let that resonate with me and really understand what that means, it just goes to show that our pains can be different. Our struggles can be different. But there's still our scars. There's still the things that hurt us so deeply. And we're just trying to process. But what I want you to know is that you do not have to sit alone. You do not have to struggle. And you do not have to sit here and go through life thinking that God does not love you, because that is by far from the truth. My purpose with this podcast, that you will feel God's love. I would love to hear from you guys. If you can go to Instagram and search Woven by Grace podcast. I would love to hear from you guys, whether you want to share your infertility journey, if you have been recently diagnosed with cancer, how you guys are coping, whether that's through prayer, through journaling. I just want to connect with you guys. I really hope that this is not always a one-sided conversation. My hope is truly to connect with you. And even if you're not having the same struggles, maybe if it's just how God saved you, how God has come into your life and shown his grace, how he's shown his love, I'm open for that too. It doesn't have to just be about infertility. I just want us to be able to connect in that way. But always remember that no matter where you are or what you're facing, that God's grace is enough. And he truly, truly is weaving something beautiful in your life. Until next time, guys. Fantastic.